Hi guys,
What's up, everybody?
welcome back to our channel.
We are the J Brew Crew,
I'm Jasmine,
and I'm Jeremy.
and Journey Baby is down for the evening. So this video is, how do I say?
It's a tough one.
It's gonna be a tough video. One that I've honestly been dreading doing, but something that we actually talked about and wanted to do for the longest. But I feel like this is kind of the right time for it to be released, simply for the fact that by the time you see this video, it would be maybe a day or two later, but from when we were actually supposed to deliver our firstborn son. But God had other plans, so it did not happen the way we expected it to happen. It happened a little bit sooner. So this video is just going to be a tough one, but like I said, we discussed that I think through our test and through this trying time in our lives, it can help other people, because I know personally for me, looking at videos on YouTube or speaking to other women who have dealt with the same thing, it has actually helped me grieve, helped me be in a better headspace. So I figure, you know what, it's pay it forward. Our experience can definitely help other people. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe someone that's experienced it 10 years from now, but it's all a part of life, the circle of life.
So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And more importantly, share this with someone who you think would truly benefit from this, and any other videos that you may see regarding what this experience that we've been through. So it's all just for the better good and just sharing, because before we went through this, we had no clue. So
never thought, honestly, for me, it was like, oh, it wouldn't happen to me. But I think of life like life is not all peaches and cream. Like, you're not always going to be happy 24/7, and there's going to be highs and there are going to be lows. So we're not going to always just experience the highs, and that's what we put out there. We want to let you know that we're human too, and everybody experiences a challenging time in their life. So let's just start off. As some of you may know, but some of you don't. Journey is our firstborn child. She will be 2 in April. When we found out we were pregnant with her, it was the easiest pregnancy. Never had any morning sickness. All the doctor's appointments and visits were great. Passed all the tests. No issues. Everything was perfectly fine. Had her. Labor was 11 hours. It wasn't bad. It was just, for me, it was normal. I had a postpartum hemorrhage, which was kind of cray-cray, but other than that, it wasn't like anything, too crazy. So going into being pregnant with Journey, having her, knowing that experience was for the first time, to us finding out we were pregnant again for the second time, which was really quite interesting, because we weren't trying. But obviously, we know what can happen if you're not protecting yourself, not to, you know what I mean?
If you're not using protection.
To not. So, So we weren't per se trying. Exactly. We weren't per se trying, but we knew what could happen. And it was June, and I just went for a regular, physical, just a regular physical for the year. And with that, they check your liver, do all that stuff, make sure everything's going good. And honestly, I found out I was pregnant amongst finding out that I might have been having a little bit of liver issues going on. So actually, my doctor had asked. She said, after all my blood work came in and stuff, she was like, "Are you pregnant?" And I was like, "No, couldn't be. Like, there's no way. I don't, well, there's a way, but I don't think I'm pregnant." And honestly, literally, I had just finished. I was still breastfeeding Journey, so I hadn't had a friend in a long time. So I was just like, no, but yes, but no. So get my results back. She wants me to go ahead and take a pregnancy test just to figure out why my liver enzymes were so increased, because she thought it could have been due to pregnancy. So I actually didn't even tell Jeremy when I went back and got blood work again, because I had to go back and get blood work, but she had asked me to come back and take a pregnancy test, and I didn't even tell him, because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be pregnant. Like it's a negative. And a day or so later, got back the results, and it was negative. And I was like, okay, cool. But now we have to figure out what's going on with my liver. But long story short, figured out what's going on with the liver. I'm good. So a week later, it was Father's Day weekend, and that Friday I was due for my friend, and it did come, but it just came really weird. And like I said, this was like maybe the first or the second one I was getting after, because I was still breastfeeding, so it was just all still very new. So I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So it was just really weird, and I was like, okay, well, let me just go ahead and just test just in case, not knowing that after I tested, it was going to come back positive. I was just doing it just to see what was going on. And long and behold, that test said, you're pregnant. And I was like, what? Like, I was so like dumbfounded, because I was like, how? Like, and I literally didn't know what to do with myself. Journey was napping. Our godson was actually over with, staying with us for a few days. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. So now I got to tell Jeremy. So I was like, well, it's kind of perfect timing, because it was Father's Day weekend. So I was like, I'll just hold this news in for 2 days, which is really hard for me, and tell him on Father's Day. And so Father's Day came around. We made these little cute little cards and stuff for Jeremy. And then what I did was wrap the pregnancy test up in some tissue paper and like presented it as like a present. And so Jeremy, I was like, oh, here's your gift. And so Jeremy opened it, and he was like, wait, what? Like, I'll let him explain his reaction, because
well, you kind of gave it away.
I did kind of give it away, because I was like trying to record and do all this other extra stuff.
I was like, Father's Day gift, but you're trying to record, but you don't ever record. You don't record Valentine's Day. You don't record nothing. Why are you recording right now? And so based on the first, having Journey, I'm like, I kind of knew. I kind of figured it out.
Journey.
Cupcakes. I noticed.
All right, Journey, get us the dada.
You hold the cupcakes.
Get us the dada. Say here, dada.
Oh, look at this. Journey, did you do this? And this? What? Good job, girl. Yay!
Yay!
Good job, Journey.
Isn't it cute? Even though she really didn't like her fingers going in stuff.
And her feet.
You probably already know what's in here, because you saw me Journey was throwing it around yesterday. Okay, well, it's cheap present, but I love you. You can have it you can eat it when you're depressed. Okay. Journey, we'll have cupcakes, okay, baby? First of all, hold on.
Upside down?
Okay.
Try to flip it and open it the other way? You should have kind of specified.
God dog it. Alright. Start from this way and go that way.
You sure?
I think.
Hey, then.
Thanks, Dad. We love you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Snickers. My two favorite candies.
And you got
Holy shit. I had a clue, because you told him to turn off his camera.
I should have said it.
Oh, snap. Nah, this is fake. You went and got this from somebody else.
Can you not?
I love bubblegum.
You said bubblegum. Okay, stop. Let me get the deal.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right, here we go. It's all a blur.
It was
now,
literally. We have a video of it.
It was pretty funny. He was like, God dog it.
Like, he guessed it, and I was like, man, I could have just told him, but whatever. But yeah, so that was June 21st that I told him that we were pregnant. And so this time around, we were literally like, okay, like you said, we were shocked because we weren't, but we kind of just kept it to ourselves. So when we found out we were pregnant with Journey, like the next day, I think we called our parents up and told them. This time around, I was like, well, I want to do it in person, like, because we didn't do it in person last time. It was over the computer. I wanted an in-person reaction. So we figured we would hold the news to ourselves. I convinced my mom to come up 4th of July weekend so we could actually do like an in-person announcement. And honestly, it was just between my parents and then his parents. And so we went over Jeremy's parents' house and pretty much act like we were all taking a picture before we were headed back out to come back home. And Jeremy had said, all right, everybody, on the count of 3, say Jasmine's pregnant. And it just took everybody complete shock, and they just looked around and it was just a complete silence because they were like, wait, did they say what we thought they said?
Your mom didn't think it was very funny.
Yeah, no, it was just like a, wait, what?
On it. All right, ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Everybody say Jasmine's pregnant.
Cheese.
Y'all not gonna say Jasmine's pregnant?
Wait.
Jasmine's pregnant.
No. She ain't denying it, y'all. So that's what it is. You pregnant? Yeah. Yo, you know what? Y'all, this the second time y'all got us. What would you want? You just told
That was a good one.
You can't talk about this and take a few pictures.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look at their faces on that one. Oh man. You okay over there? Number 2 is on the way.
That's how I'm gonna go to picture.
I'm like, what?
I'm probably like this. I'm like.
So yeah, they found out, and I think by then we were like 6 or 7 weeks. We were pretty far along then compared to what we told them last time. And yeah, so we told our family, and then from there, honestly, this pregnancy, we did not announce it on Facebook, and I just didn't want to personally, and we really didn't announce it to a lot of our family until we were like really far along. It was probably
you wanted to get past a certain point before you let people know.
Yeah, of course they say the 12-week mark is the safe space, but I don't think we told our family, even our immediate family, until about like 15, 16 weeks. We were pretty far along.
Yeah.
But honestly, that was for me due to the fact that like I was considered high risk, number one, because I was having liver issues at the time. They didn't know what was going on. So they considered me high risk. And I was just like, you know what, let's just, keep it to ourselves. This is a very exciting time, but a very personal also, so we just kind of just kept it to ourselves. Like I said, our parents knew, our siblings knew, grandparents knew, but that might've been it.
Yeah, that was it.
And so, yeah, that was our announcement and going from there. And so everything was fine the first few weeks. Like I said, I didn't have morning sickness. I might have had nausea like once or twice, but I didn't have morning sickness, didn't have a lot of cravings, nothing.
You had more cravings this time than last time.
I don't even remember what my cravings were. But yeah, everything was pretty normal. My stomach definitely was showing a lot more. So I wasn't going around. It was COVID anyway, so we weren't really going around people at all.
Which is good because your belly popped.
Yeah, I definitely was showing really quick. Like there was no, oh, she's not pregnant. Like my stomach was out there probably by like 7 weeks, 8 weeks. Yeah, so everything was fine, no issues. Went to the regular 12-week checkup that you go to see the baby. Now, like I said, because they considered me high risk, I had already seen the maternal fetal doctor. Yeah, so everything was normal, pretty much fine. It was week 13. I was probably like 13 weeks. So Friday was my day that how do you say it? That's when I
What Friday?
every Friday is when I gained a new week. Like every Friday is when I matriculated to the next week. So I'm like, I don't know how to say that, but yeah. So it was October. No, not October. It was August. It was right after I made 12 weeks. So I was 13. No, right after I made 13 weeks. And we ended up going to, Jeremy ended up taking me to the ER because I woke up in the middle of the night and it was just like a gush. And I was like, wow, what is that? I've never felt that with Journey. Like, what is going on? And I have went to the bathroom. And when I looked down, was bleeding. And I was like, what is happening? Is this a miscarriage? I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm freaking out. And I end up telling Jeremy, but first thing in my mind was call my mom. So I called my mom and I called Jeremy's mom, and I'm like, with Journey, I never bled, not one time from the time I found out I was pregnant. And so when that happened, I was just like, oh my God, like first thought in my head was like, okay, I don't want to be like, am I miscarrying? What's happening? What's going on? So this was like at 4 a.m. So I wake Jeremy up and I tell him, and my mom and Jeremy's mom's like, you need to go to the ER. Mind you, we have Journey middle of the night. So I end up calling my friend, Journey's godmom, and she met us at the hospital, and she took Journey from there, and we went in. So we got into the hospital, we were the only ones there. We went back like right away. Mind you, I'm still bleeding at this time, and they take us back. They have me change into, did I change into rope? I don't even remember. But they start, they hook me up, start checking me out, do all those things, start taking a whole bunch of tests. We had to wait for the ultrasound tech to come because it was 4 a.m. So they had to actually get to the hospital. End up getting an ultrasound. Long story short, baby was perfectly fine. He was in there moving around, kicking, nothing was going on. They couldn't figure out why I was bleeding. To this day, they don't know.
Tell me about
They don't.
popping your side.
Yeah, they don't know what caused the bleeding. They said, go home, get some rest, and then it should stop. Like literally, they did not know what caused the bleeding. They could not figure it out. So I went home. Bleeding stopped. Bleeding stopped, so it wasn't happening anymore. And then probably about 2 weeks later, I remember I was just, sitting on the bed, and I had turned around and I felt like a pop, and it was very uncomfortable. And I was like, wow, what was that? Like, that is just really weird. And so like that happened. And then that was like late at night. And then the following morning, it started looking like, it wasn't like fresh blood, but it was like, the brown blood happening again. And I was just kind of like, okay, that's weird. What is going on? So, so this is now September. So yeah, so I ended up calling the doctor again, and they were like, it could just be the old, dried old blood from, what happened before. But you should probably come in so we can see you and go from there. Mind you, after I went to the ER, they told me I stopped lifting Journey because they told me not to lift anything heavier than a gallon of milk. So I wasn't lifting her. I honestly was just taking it easy. They were like, just kind of stay off your feet as much as possible. Don't do anything strenuous. Just chill out and go from there. So sorry, I kind of have everything written down just so I don't skip anything. But yeah, that happened. And so I ended up scheduling another appointment to go back in. But prior to us going back in, we had also taken, I did the early, the early test to figure out what we were having. the blood test. I did the blood test instead of waiting until the 20-week anatomy scan to see what we were having. So right after like the 13th, 14th week, was it 13th, 14th week, we had found out that we were having a boy. And we were super excited. I already felt like I was having a boy. I don't know what Jeremy we just honestly didn't care. We just wanted a healthy baby. But I kind of like, just like I kind of felt with Journey that she was a girl, I kind of was like, oh, this is a boy. Something just in me was like, this is a boy. So we were super excited. We found out we were having a boy. We actually, like I said, we told our families, like we didn't have a big gender reveal like we had for Journey because obviously COVID was going on. So we just did like smaller things, like we did like you eat a piece of chocolate in whatever color, like it was blue inside of it, or us doing the little, what is it? Confetti, the confetti popper thingy. So yeah, just small stuff that we did just to present to the fact that we knew we were having, so we wanted to, let our families know what we were having.
All right, so this is you guys' gender reveal. So they eat in front of you guys. You have a piece of chocolate.
Wait, let them eat it together.
You have a piece of chocolate, so you're gonna open it up. You're not gonna just open it up. Don't break the chocolate or nothing. Just open the chocolate up. All right, and then on the count of 3, y'all are gonna take a bite. Well, count down from 3. 3, 2, 1. Take a bite.
Oh my goodness!
It's a boy.
Oh my goodness! It's a boy. Do it.
Here got his boy and girl. Y'all got y'all boy and girl.
Wow.
Yep.
I can't just be some sativa. I'm wasting my sugar.
I don't make those for gender reveal, I don't think.
I'm wasting my sugar, man.
Hey.
Wait, 5, 4, 3.
It's like a flag drop at the release, or when it
Say go.
So when you say go, at the same time.
Okay.
5,
4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
It's a boy!
Boy, I told y'all the boy.
That's it. I knew because you kept smiling.
So, mind you, because of COVID, Jeremy's not allowed to really go into any of the appointments with me, or we would have Journey and she can't come back, so Jeremy wasn't allowed to go on any of the appointments with me. So yeah, that was just rough on its own, because with Journey, like every appointment, this dude did not miss not one appointment. He was there for every appointment through it all. So it's like you had your partner there to kind of like, hear whatever's going on. So went to the maternal fetal doctor and they did a regular ultrasound with, over your belly. And then they did the ultrasound using a wand that, goes up there. It's more in depth and gives you like you can see your placenta and your cervix and stuff more. So I just remember them, baby boy was always healthy. He always had a great heart rate. He was always moving around, kicking, perfectly fine. But I just remember the nurse or the ultrasound tech during the appointment when she was using the wand, and she kind of looked, and you can tell when something's different or something's wrong or they see something. And I always like
when the aura in the room.
yeah, like it wasn't like horrible, but you could tell like she saw something, because she kept going over the same area and taking pictures and doing this and doing that. And obviously you can't ask them because they're not going to tell you. They're going to say, wait for the doctor to come in. They'll kind of let you know what's going on. And so the doctor came in and she pretty much told me like, baby looks fine, but you do have a shortened cervix. And I was like, what? Because like I said, perfect pregnancy, nothing nothing crazy with Journey. So she said you have a shortened cervix, and then we do see I might be saying this wrong, but a subchronic hematoma. Um, and for those of you who don't know, subchronic hematoma is pretty much just the old bleed that had previously occurred that was still there that they can see on the monitor when they're checking
Like
dry blood. That was pretty much dry blood that was there. And where the dry blood was right next to my cervix. And so she told me I have a shortened cervix, and pretty much at that point in time, there was really nothing I could do about it. Like, she was like, because you have the subchronic hematoma, we can't do anything but kind of let your body play, do its own thing, let the blood come out. Because when women have shortened cervix, they have the options of getting a cerclage where they kind of stitch up your cervix so that it doesn't open up until they're ready, until they cut it. And, it's more along the lines of you're being closer to full term so you don't deliver a preterm baby. But if you have any complications going on or you have like a bleed like what I had, they will not do it because it can make things worse for your body or your baby. So, like I said, they did not know what caused the hematoma, so it was just kind of like, let your body do whatever it's going to do. What they did start me on was progesterone depositories that I had to put up there every night just to kind of slow my cervix down, because what they did ask me was I having like contractions, and I said there's nothing that I can feel going on. Like, I know what a contraction feels like, or Braxton Hicks, like I don't have any of that going on. So they pretty much was having me do that to like kind of just slow what was going on with my cervix, slow down what's going on with my cervix. And from there, I literally was at the doctors every week. And mind you, I was already going to the doctors a lot and getting my blood drawn because of what was going on with my liver, so they can figure out that. And now adding on going to the doctor multiple times every week just to make sure baby Jay was okay and that I was okay and the pregnancy was progressing the way it was supposed to and he was growing and so forth. So literally, like I said, doctors every week, and every week after I started doing the progesterone, my cervix was pretty much staying very consistent and it was no changes. His heart rate was great. He was doing fine. I was gaining the weight I needed to. So, we just figured we were in the clear. We just got to make it to, 36 weeks. Because that's when they said that I would have to stop taking the progesterone, because by then I could start, my body can actually start having the baby. Now, mind you, in that first appointment when I found out my cervix was shortened, the doctor obviously has to tell me what is associated and the risks of having a shortened cervix at where I was. So pretty much my cervix was down to like a 2 when I don't know what it's called. She just pretty much said your cervix is at a 2. And it should, where I was in pregnancy, it should have been like at a 4 or something like that. But she said a 2. I just remember 2. And she said, you run the risk of having a preterm birth. Now, I heard what she said, but in your head, like, yeah, you're saying that, but you're like, okay, I know what my guy can do. Like, we're fine. You don't want to, you hear what they're saying, the doctor's saying, but you still want to think the best. Like, you don't want to think the worst, even I know what could, it can't happen. I said, okay, and so I remember from that appointment on, I was like, Lord, like, just make it to, 30 weeks. We can make it to 30 weeks. And then we would be good. Make it to the 3rd trimester, we would be good. So every week that passed, I just remember saying even though every week I was going to the doctors and I had an appointment and I was going to pick the product, like, I did not care, because I was like, you know what? That's every week I get a chance to see the baby. He's growing, he's getting bigger, we're fine. So that was, I think I went to the maternal fetal doctors probably like 6 weeks from the time that I found out that I had a shortened cervix. I think it was around like the 17-week mark that I found out. And every week we were at the doctor's, every single week. And by 20 weeks, obviously everything, you get your anatomy scan, you do more blood work. Baby boy passed all the tests. He had all his fingers, all his toes, all the blood work came back for all the tests. He was cleared. Anatomy wise, everything was perfect. And then, let's see. So 20 weeks, everything was clear. 21 weeks, everything was clear. Now I can say, I'm going to insert this here because I just remember around the time that I hit my 18-week mark, um, I remember reading in the story on the headlines that like Chrissy Teigen and John Legend had lost their baby. And mind you, when you're pregnant and you hear somebody else have a loss, like it hits you. Like it should hit anybody, but when you're pregnant, that just hits you. Like it was like I felt her pain even though I was not experiencing what she was experiencing, but I know what I was in return going through currently, that it was just like, man, like that, it really hit me hard. And by her sharing her experience, like I was just like, man, she's a tough mama. Like she is one tough mama. Like you're dealing with it and you're still out here sharing it for other women. Because honestly, when I sit back and think about this whole experience, it just, in my head, like I said, I was like the only one going through it. But let me continue on. So 18 weeks, went in 18 weeks fine, 19 weeks fine, 20 weeks fine, 21 weeks fine. Like I said, going to the doctor, everything's good. 22-week mark, we went to the doctor, and it was kind of crazy because this is the first appointment. We dropped Journey off to her mom's house, and this was actually the first appointment that Jeremy actually came in with me. Like normally when I'm at the appointments, I am calling him when the doctor's talking to me, or I'm calling him so he can see baby J from the screen. So this was the first appointment that he was actually able to physically go in the room with me. We didn't have Journey, and he was in there. So he could ask the questions that he wanted to. He can see him on the screen and go forth from there. So we went to the appointment, left the appointment. Everything was fine. Came home. Like I said, I was literally laying on the couch. Journey had our play area in our living room at the time, and she was kind of confined to our living room. And I was just laying on the couch, not doing anything, like literally not lifting anything, just taking it easy and relaxing. It was now Saturday, and Jeremy had a job. He worked all day Saturday. Now this is October 24th. So we went to the doctor October 23rd. And I had just made 22 weeks, and now I'm 22 weeks in one day on October 24th. And I just didn't feel right. Like you know your body, and I just felt weird. And I remember calling my mom, calling Jeremy's mom, talking to them, letting them know, because right now it was just me and Journey at home. Jeremy was out working. And I remember asking them, because I thought that I had, like, some of my mucus plug had come out, because I just remember what it looked like when I had Journey. And so I was like, I don't know what this is. Let me call the doctor. So they told me to call the doctor. I kind of described what it was, so forth. And she was like, you know what? Sometimes a part of your mucus plug does come out. You should, just take it easy, go from there. And if you start feeling anything, or you start feeling weird, come on into the hospital so we can, check you out. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna, take it easy, lay on the couch. And that's what I did. Like, I wasn't having any contractions. It was nothing major. I just, no, actually what was happening was I had really bad TMI. I had really bad diarrhea. And that I attribute to the fact that Friday we had Buona beef. And I don't eat meat a lot. But I smashed the whole sandwich to myself. And I was like, oh, my stomach that did not sit well with my stomach. That is what's happening. Because when I say I don't eat meat, I rarely eat meat. But I was craving that sandwich that day, and I had it. And so I thought, Saturday, this is not, is not sitting well with my stomach. And so pretty much I stayed on the phone with my mom all day. Jeremy's mom was checking up on me too. And I was just taking it easy. But it was the midday or 3. I kept calling Jeremy, kind of keeping him updated what's going on. And I told him, I was like, we should just go to the hospital. Like, I think we should just go to the hospital. I'm really not feeling well. We should just go get checked out and go from there. And so by the time Jeremy got home, I had already made up my mind before. Like, I don't think I told him that I wanted to go to the hospital until he actually walked in the door. Am I right? And I think it was when he walked in the door. And by then I had already started getting Journey ready, because I was going to drop her off at her godmom's house. So I had already started getting her bag ready, all that stuff. But long story short, after I told Jeremy let's go to the hospital and figure out so we can get checked out, he had called his parents, and Jeremy's parents actually met us at the hospital and then came back to the house with Journey while we went in.
But you have a real bad back pain.
And by the time, like, it's crazy because by the time I said, let's go to the hospital, like, I was fine all day. I was now, like, walking in the kitchen trying to get something, and I was like, oh my God, like, I had to stop. Like, my back started really hurting, and I was really like, okay, I got to take a deep breath. Like, hold on, I got to work through that pain. Like, I was in pain by this time. And I was like, that's so crazy because I was not feeling anything all day. And now when I'm like, oh, we're going to the hospital, I'm in, like, pain. And so, hospital ride there, we get there and go to the ER again, and we already kind of know what's going on, the protocol, because we went to the ER around 13 weeks. So get to the ER, and this time around, because I tell them what was going on, they took me up to labor and delivery because they were like, they need to check you up there because we can't check you down in ER. And so Jeremy actually couldn't even come upstairs with me unless I was getting checked into labor and delivery. So I'm getting wheeled up there, like freaking out in my head to myself. Like, I have the nurse with me, but I don't have Jeremy. Like, so get up to labor and delivery. They took me to like the triage area. They had me change into a gown. And I just remember when I got up there, they laid on the bed, you know, started pricking and prodding, taking blood pressure, doing all that stuff. And I forgot the doctor's name, but I remember, physically, you know, examining me down there, and she had brought the little light and the spectacle, and then, she looked, and then she kind of like, you know, felt, and I just remember her, like, in my head, I can just see her facial expression, and I just remember, like, she walked over to me, and she put her hand on, oh gosh, sorry. She put her hand on my, she put her hand on my, I don't want to give up. Okay. She put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're in labor. And I looked at her and I said, what? I said, I know what labor feels like because I got all the way to like 8 centimeters before I got an epidural with Journey. So I know what it feels like to be in like active labor. And I said, what? I was like, so there's like nothing we can do? Like, I'm in labor? And she's like, yes, you're in labor. So I just remember sitting there and was just in shock. Like, I didn't cry. I was just kind of like in shock. Like, I hear what she's saying, but I don't believe it. And this time Jeremy's not with me. And I texted him and said, okay, you can come up now, come to labor and delivery. And I don't know what's going through his head, but I knew. And I just remember when I talked to him, he was like, well, what's going on? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell him what's going on now because he's by himself and I don't want him to like have a breakdown while he's walking up here and like lose it. So I didn't say anything. I just said, just come up here. She's going to explain what's going on and go from there. They transitioned me from being in the little triage area to actually going for a room. And mind you, this is the same hospital that we had Journey in. So I kind of knew the lay of the land. And so they switched me from that area. They rolled me into, I don't remember if I was on a wheelchair or in a bed. I don't remember. But they rolled me into a delivery room. And by then, Jeremy had came up. And I just had to kind of let them know, like, they said I'm in labor. And when, you know what that lady told me? She told me, when she told me that I'm sorry you're in labor, she said, I see his head. You are about 6 centimeters dilated. And I'm looking like, how am I 6 centimeters dilated? Like, where? How? Like, I was just so confused because it happened so fast. And for her to say I'm 6 centimeters dilated, I just was like, there's no way. Absolutely no way. So they get me settled into the room. By this time now I'm getting the IVs in me. They're starting me on fluids. They pretty much told us because I'm already 6 centimeters dilated, they can't stop the labor. Like, I'm too far gone for them to give me anything to slow down labor. And that I kind of just had to let my body do, what it was going to do. And so they started me an IV, gave me fluids. I got because this is considered a preterm birth. So anytime that it's before a baby's born before 37 weeks, they consider it a preterm birth. So because it's considered preterm birth, they gave me a steroid shot in my butt, which hurt really bad. Then they gave me in my IV magnesium to help with the brain. So steroid shots help with, I think, development of the lungs, and then magnesium was to help with the development of his brain. And then I had to get the COVID test. Mind you, I literally wasn't doing anything because when I was pregnant, I stayed away from everybody, didn't go anywhere. We stayed in the house. And so at the hospital, I was like, okay, well, I know I don't have COVID, which, you know, they gave me the test. I freaked out. I was losing it for the fact that I had had that thing go up my nose. Everything else was going on, but I was losing over them trying to, you know, put that thing up my nose. So I got the COVID test, came back negative, which was great because being I had a negative COVID test, I was able to take my mask off going through it, you know, being there because there was just so much going on. And I'm like, great, I'm gonna have to deliver and have this mask on. So I was able to take that off. And I just remember all the nurses, like, they were sweet when I had Journey. Like, I love this hospital. They were great. They were sweet. But all the nurses there, like, were so sweet, so loving, so caring. So Jeremy came upstairs. He found out what was going on. And I just remember us looking at each other like, okay, this is happening. Like, it's me and you. Like, we in this. Like, there's no turning back. And it was just, I can't even describe. Like, I literally was just very numb. Like, I sat there like, okay, this is really happening. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I knew it could happen, but I really can't believe it's happening.
I don't think we really talked a whole lot.
It was just very, like, quiet in there. And I remember telling Jeremy to put on some gospel music. So we had gospel music playing, and I was like, okay, well, all right, this is really happening. I'm 6 centimeters. By the time they gave me all the stuff to get me, like, prepped and ready, you know, to deliver, everything was fast. Like,
you didn't get the epidural.
I couldn't get the epidural. Like, I actually could have gotten epidural, but it was just, I literally, by the time
he got up there.
By the time they got up there and they got me situated in the room I was delivering in, I went from being 6 centimeters to about 8 or 9 within like an hour. So I was like, what is happening? Seriously, like, everything just went so fast. And then I was like, you know what? The doctor and I had decided it's better that we don't do the epidural, that, you know, just let my body do what it's going to do, because number one, I was like ready to be, you know, push any time now once I got to 10 centimeters. And then, like, we didn't want to complicate anything else and add anything else on. So prior to me becoming 10 centimeters, obviously because we're now delivering a preterm baby, he would be considered preemie, and the NICU staff had to come down. And they were awesome. They were great. They gave us their, you know, they had to obviously tell us what our risks are and what our chances were. And so the doctor, I just remember sitting there and I'm like, okay, this is really happening. Let me just pay attention to what's going on. He told us, I was only going to be 22 weeks and 1 day at the time. And it's around like probably now 10:30, 11 o'clock. And he said, at 22 weeks, they have a 30% chance of survival. Now, he had to break down what he was trying to say. So he told us the risks, like what his suggestions were, what our risks were. And he said prior to, mind you, this is October, 6 months ago, prior to October, that this wouldn't have even been a conversation, because the doctors wouldn't have even come down and even speak with us. If we went into, they wouldn't have even tried to save our baby, because at 22 weeks, the chance of survival is so low. But we were already past that, and they had said at 22 weeks, he has a 30% chance of surviving, and it's up to you. You get to make the choice. Like I said, 6 months prior, we wouldn't have even had a choice. So he explained to us the percentage of, you know, chance of him surviving, what the pros and cons were. Obviously that he would be in the NICU and he would be hooked up to all the machines because they wouldn't help him breathe. They would have to, you know, feed him through the tube, all that stuff. Told us all that stuff. And so they pretty much asked us what our choice was, and they kind of gave us time to decide what we wanted to do. And Jeremy and I literally like looked at each other. We didn't even have to have a discussion. There was like not even a no. You try all you can for my baby. Like, there was no oh, like, I know, like, no, because in my head, once again, it's, I know what my God can do. Like, I understand what you're saying, but I know what, God can do. And so we didn't even have to discuss it. It was, do all you can to save the baby. We don't care what you have to do all you can. So we had that all figured out. And then it was probably just letting my body do what it was going to do until it was time for labor. And so it was now, I think, midnight. I think it was now October 25th. It was around midnight. And I just remember looking at Jeremy and I said, it's time. Like, I feel it. I feel a lot of pressure. I know, I even though I had the epidural with Journey, I just remember the feeling of the intense pressure when it was time for me to push her out. So they got the staff, they called them in, the NICU doctors, and everybody came down. And it was time in return for me to push. Now, this experience was totally different from Journey because the room was packed. Like, our room had so many nurses, and
we had two teams in there.
We had two teams in there, like a team for me and then a team for baby JJ. And it was crazy because they knew I had a postpartum hemorrhage, so they were making sure, preparing that doesn't happen again. So like it was a lot of nurses in there, the doctor, and then it was a whole bunch of nurses and doctors in there for the baby. And so it was around, I think, midnight. I was fully dilated and I was ready to push, and I pushed a few times. And mind you, he was so little, so it wasn't like it took me as long. I pushed for almost 2 hours with Journey to get her out. It wasn't like that. It was like all right, push me, get a contraction, and I had a contraction, and I pushed, so he probably was out within like 10-15 minutes from me starting to push. And it was crazy because as soon as he came out, they already had told us they're gonna just take the baby right away and take him over to get work done with his staff, with his team. And I said, okay. And I just remember when I, pushed him out, I could hear him. He didn't cry, but he made a noise. So I knew baby boy came out, and he was alert, he was alive, and he was breathing when he came out. And they rushed him over there. And I was just like, okay. So Jeremy was sitting right beside me the whole entire time, and he was like keeping me informed of what was going on, because obviously I'm still in active labor. I haven't pushed the placenta out yet. So Jeremy was literally like keeping me up to date, whether he was hearing them saying over there like, oh, they got one tube in and it worked, or whatever was happening. He was keeping me up to date. He was born at 12/18, and the doctors were, like I said, they were working on him from the time he came out. And it was probably about I would say 15 minutes later, and the head doctor of the NICU staff, he, I could hear little things going on. I can hear bits and pieces, but like I said, the room was so crowded and there was so much going on. It was just hard to, figure out everything. And so they came and spoke. But my legs still up, still hadn't put placenta out. And it was 14, 15 minutes later, I just remember the doctor walking over, and he had just I don't want to say a blank stare. You could tell
he was distraught.
They tried.
He's one of the best at getting the tubes into the
smallest of lungs.
The smallest of lungs. So he couldn't figure out why he was able to get one but couldn't get the other one.
Yeah. And so he said
why he could get one lung but couldn't get the other
yeah.
lung. And he was you could tell he was extremely
all the staff, they walked, he walked over and he said, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but we weren't able to do it, and he didn't make it. And I heard the words, like I said, I'm going through this whole process and I'm hearing everything, and I heard the words, and it was just a calm feeling that went over me, because I was just all I remember saying is, okay. And I say that to say this because as soon as he came out, and I saw a glimpse of him, I saw how little he was when he first came out. And like I said, prior to us delivering him and going into the situation, I was do all you can do, everything, that's our fighter, we gotta get through it. But when I saw how little his body was, he was just so tiny. And it was just like I can't be selfish. Like, I know I want him around. Like, I know that's what we want in our hearts. But to see him to have to be hooked up to tubes and all that stuff to survive. And I said, God, at that point in time when I delivered him, I said, God, whatever your will is, like, let it be done. Like, but it was just like I don't, like I said, I wanted everything we can do. But when I saw his little face and saw his little body, I said, man, like, that's a lot. Like, he's going to go through a lot, to make it these next few weeks. And so months. And so, like, when the doctor came over to me and said, came over to us, I was just like, he didn't make it. We tried all we can do. I would just, like I said, all I could do is say, okay. And from there, these doctors and nurses started clearing out. And they cleaned him up and they brought him over. I just remember they brought him over to my chest, kind of like, like the first, and they laid him on me, and he was, he's so little, and he was wrapped up, and I lost it. Like, it was oh my goodness, like, here's the life that we created, and he's no longer here. It was, I lost it. I did. I just remember holding him and just, like, crying out, like, Lord, just, take him. He's yours. And the first thing I could think of is, he's with my grandmother now, because I just lost my grandma back in 2019, right after I had Journey. And that's the first thing I could think of, like, Ma, take him with open arms. And he was just so little, and he was still so warm, but he still had so much life in him, but his soul had moved on. And I just remember sitting there crying and crying, and finally, and I think I hadn't even delivered my placenta yet, so I'm still sitting there waiting to deliver placenta, but holding him. And finally, they took him again to get him, like, cleaned up, and they had to go, like, do the what? Yeah, they went to go do, like, his measurements and stuff like that, so they can have that all written down. And this whole time, my doctor was amazing. She was a godsend. And like I said, all the nurses were a godsend. Like, everybody there were a complete
praising us, and we were
godsend.
like, no,
and
like,
I remember them saying to us, like, you two are so strong. You two are so strong. And I'm looking like, you guys are so awesome. Like, and I'm like, I guess, I don't know. In other situations, might have been, I don't know. But they literally kept saying that to us. And they took such great care of us, because they took his little footprints, and made these little,
you can show it.
I actually got it. They made these little molds of his, I don't know if you see it. There you go, a little bit. But they made these little molds of his feet for us. And
it's hard to see because it's all white.
It's kind of hard to see with all white. And obviously they gave us this little card, like, and we received one of these when we had Journey or whatnot. And I remember them. They also asked us. They said, "Well, what are you naming the baby?" And from time we found out we were having a boy, Jeremy's always talked about having a junior, and so we named him Jeremy Houston Kennebrew Jr. And there was no question in my mind. Like, there was no, oh, we're not going to name him this because he didn't make it, and so forth. Because in our heads, that's our firstborn son. Like, it doesn't matter if he didn't make it. He was given the name Jeremy Houston Kennebrew Jr. because I birthed him. Like, that was our child, He still is our child. He's just not, here with us. And so they wrote his name on here and gave us all his measurements. He was 10.75 inches in length. His head was about 8 inches, and born at 12/18. These are his little toes, and then his little hand. And it's crazy because after, like I said, they did all that and cleaned him up and brought him over to me, took all his measurements. They wrapped him up in this cute little blanket. Like, they had his little hat on, and they wrapped him up in this see how little it is, this cute little blanket, and we got to see him and hold him and love on him and kiss on him. And it just amazed me because, you know, I'm just sitting here staring at him and I'm like, you are so perfect. Like throughout the whole time, pregnancy, even throughout delivery, he was never in like he was in distress, and that his heart rate never went up, it never went low. Like he was just perfect. And all I could think of in my head was, man, that little boy was a fighter. Like with my body going through all the things that it was going through. They had started me on Ursidal, which is like a bile acid for going on with my liver. And I was like, you know, giving blood every week, doing all that stuff, going through all the tests, all the stuff that, you know, I had going on in my body. And he literally, he was there, he was kicking, he was always alive. Like he never, like, you know, heart rate was always great. And so we, after all that, like I said, they cleaned him up, brought him over to us, and we kind of, it's now like 12:30 in the morning, 12:45, whatever. So we obviously are staying the night. And they had asked us if like, they wanted us, if we wanted to keep him in the room with us, or like, you know, and I said, oh, of course, like he's staying with us. Like he's, you know, I understand that he's not, you know.
Yeah, but one of the nurses even mentioned, I think it came up a couple times, just, you know, even though you might not want to, at least like take the pictures and spend the time, because
make your memories.
Make the memory, because you don't want to look back and be like, oh, I wish I had done this, or I wish.
But that wasn't even a question for us. Like he's not staying in a room with us. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they cleaned me up, finished all that stuff, and I probably stayed in there for another hour or two. Brought us some food, because mind you, we hadn't eaten. It had been hours since I had had anything to eat. And then they would transition us over to the like labor room where you would stay for the rest of the night, and the nurses would come in to check on you from there. And so they switched us over, and I remember as soon as they rolled us through the hallway and got us over there, I got in the room, and just an immense amount of like emotions just took over me, because it was like I was here like a year and a half ago with like Journey, like who was, you know, a baby that we got full term, you know, had full term. And like, I felt like I was in the same room, but come to find out we were only like one room apart from where I was in the room with Journey. So I got very emotional just going into the room, and the baby being wheeled in behind us and so forth from there. And mind you, now it's like a nurse change time, like you change nurse so often. I think we had like 3 nurse changes from the time we had gotten into the hospital. But the nurses that were there with me throughout my delivery, I just remember, obviously it's COVID going on, and I just remember them saying, I know it's COVID, but can I give you a hug? It's just one of those things of like, you guys are so sweet, because they didn't have to be so nice. They didn't have to be, you know, and I had my mom there, and that was like a major thing for me too, because I had my mom through a journey. So it was just a rough experience. So just to be so kind and, you know, really like helped me a lot. And so, you know, it was her, and like everybody was giving me hugs, and the nurses changed, and we had another great, awesome set of nurses. And what happened, and then pretty much for the rest of the evening, or the rest of that day, so they
by the time we got in there, it was getting pretty early.
It was going into the morning, like 6 a.m., probably like 6 a.m., 4, 5, something like that. And so, mind you, I was so tired, but I just couldn't sleep. I just wanted to enjoy the little bit of time that I did have with them. And I just remember laying in the bed, and I had him in the bed with me. Little baby boy was just laying there, and I just remember just looking at him, so I could just remember his face and everything, like his little ears, and he just looked just Journey. His little face, just his like little split an image of Journey. And I just remember just smelling him, just taking in everything I could take in, because I just didn't want the moment to end, because I knew once we left the hospital, like, I'm not going home with my baby. I'm not. He's, you know. So I just remember, you know, calling my mom, calling Jeremy's mom, letting them see the baby, and going from there. Taking as many pictures as we can take, taking videos. I just remember just smelling him. His scent. I just remember smelling him. I could not stop smelling him because I just wanted to remember his scent. And I held him. Like I said, he slept in the bed with me all night. And sometimes I had to put him back in the little bassinet thingy in there, because they had like a cooler in there to keep him cold. So I would have to lay him back in there just to get cold every now and then. And we were able to I think throughout this whole process in my head, I knew it was happening, but I didn't know it was happening, because it wasn't until that next day, when, you know, now we have to figure out what the next steps are.
I think it was really just like I think it was when we were in the hospital, it was like, you got to deal with it because you got to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it was like you didn't have a choice but to just like walk that line. So it was just like, I think we like you said, we took all the pictures, we took all the video, because we knew at some point we got to look back at it and or even if we did, we still had to process. So you know, yeah. So yeah, it was just I think it helped with the processing.
Yeah. But it wasn't really until I remember the still mist person came in and had to speak to us. So after a baby passes, now the process of, obviously, it's not like, you know, when your baby's alive and then you guys get discharged, you have so much to go through and process paperwork before you get discharged. And so, like, we got little Jeremy baptized or christened. The hospital pastor came in and did that, and it was so nice because he did it, and I got to keep the stuff that he was christened in. So he got christened in this outfit right here, and no, he got christened in, oh no, he got christened in this. So he was in this outfit, but he got christened, and we put this on him, and he had his little hat on, and then they had water and they christened him with this. So we got him that. So at least I was like, okay, he's christened, and the pastor prayed for us. And then after they came in, then the still mist person came in, and that is the person who's in charge of, you know, speaking to the parents if, you know, a baby passes away. And she kind of went through the process of what we have to do. And so since we had baby JJ at 22 weeks, he was not considered a miscarriage. And when you have a baby at 22 weeks, you now have to get the baby cremated. And so the hospital also cremates babies, but because he was 22 weeks, we had to go through a funeral home to get him cremated, because the hospital only cremates babies who are 20 weeks and less. And so we had to set that process up, sign paperwork for that. We had to sign paperwork to release his body. And the funeral home that actually works with the hospital is one in the area, really close to the hospital. They are actually super duper amazing because they do it for free. They cremate the babies for free. You just have to pay for obviously the death certificates and the certificate to actually get the baby cremated. And so we set all that stuff up, and they bought us a little purple box, and that's what he was going to get cremated in. And so we actually had him dressed up in this stuff, but I had asked them, you know, prior to them cremating him, if they could actually just take off all his clothes, and they had this blanket wrapped around him, and so we can, and so yeah, this is the blanket and all the stuff that he had on, and I asked them, like, please don't cremate him in that, because I want it back, you know, just so I can have it, you know, for our, you know, memories, and like if I ever just want to smell it, because I had it on him all, you know, for those hours that he was with us. So we did that. And then, like I said, it wasn't until she walked in that room and we actually had to start that process that it all just hit me. And I literally just started bawling and crying because it's like, okay, this is real. Like, this is not like, this is really happening. And so she was completely amazing. The hospital staff, like I said, hands down, completely amazing. The nurse that we had, like I said, we had 3 nurse changes. Not the original nurse that we had when I first got into the labor room, but the nurse that we had that changed, that we had before we, end up getting discharged. When I say completely amazing, because she helped me put on the clothes on him because he was so gentle and so fragile and I just couldn't handle it. She helped get him dressed, and I just remember her and I just having a moment and we just cried. She hugged me and we just cried. And she was like, you are so amazing. And I'm over here like, no, you're amazing because you're helping me get through this and you don't understand how hard, like, she was, that staff there, hands down, at Hinsdale is absolutely amazing. I cannot give them enough praise. And so we saw the pastor, we saw the still missed person, and I think I saw one more other person, and I just don't remember currently what it is. But they gave us so much stuff, and I remember the still missed person came in with so much stuff that they presented us with. Like, they gave us this to keep all our stuff in, also like paperwork and stuff for him, and this. I got to take all the blankets that he got to lay in, and so I get to have, and it, like, I smell it, like even right now, like, it just smells like I have the blankets. And then they gave us these little what are these, bracelets? And the bracelets, I have one on right now, but the bracelets, they come with another smaller bracelet that we were able to put around baby JJ's arm, and he actually got cremated in those. And so, like, we had one for each set of grandparents, one for me, Jeremy, and then one for Journey. So he had 5 bracelets on him, and he got cremated in. That's the only thing I wanted him to get cremated in. And we all each got a bracelet to keep. And I had like a teddy bear. Just they gave us a whole box of so much stuff that we were able to, and all the stuff that they got actually was from was presented to us from other families who they experienced a loss at the hospital, and their way of giving back and help comfort families that are currently experiencing it is like teddy bears and a little notebook.
They gave me, it was like a little book that
pamphlet,
a gentleman who had lost they had a stillbirth, and so he wrote a small book on like a guide for fathers and stuff,
and like the different forms of grief and like what you probably experienced. It was a lot. They gave us a lot of things, and in that moment, it just, once again, like, it just, the waterworks started happening, because I'm like, man, people are so awesome to know, like, you're passing something on, for the fact that you know what it feels like, and to deal with like what was happening with us currently at that time. And so I just remember they kept telling us we can leave whenever we were ready. Whenever you're ready, you can leave. Whenever you're ready. I was not ready. I did not want to leave. Like, my whole mindset was, I'm about to leave this hospital and leave my child here. Like, I'm not leaving with my baby. Like, I came into this hospital with the baby that was kicking inside of me. It was perfectly fine. And I'm leaving out, and I have to leave him here. So I just remember telling the nurse, and Jeremy was like, okay, Jasmine, like, you're gonna keep making yourself crazy, because I literally could not let him go. Like, I was holding him, and I just wanted to smell it. I kept him right here, close to me, and he was so little. Like Jeremy can honestly like hold him with one hand, like in one hand. He was just so tiny. He was long, and he was just tiny, like perfectly healthy. He just needed to put on more weight. That's all we needed, like just weight. I remember telling the nurse, I said, once we finish, loving on him and taking our pictures and doing all that stuff, and it's time for us to, get discharged, I need you, and we, put him in a box and we tied it up. I was like, can you roll him out first? Because I don't want him to think that we left him in a hospital. Like, I didn't want to have to walk out and leave him in the room and think like we just left you, and that was, by choice,
So I asked her to let him roll out first before we were even, discharged to leave. And so I just remember that happening. After we were ready, and we called her and told her, okay, it's time. You can take him out. And I was so ready to go after that, because I think in my mindset I was just like, I don't want to hear another baby. Like I didn't want to hear any crying babies. I just needed to get out the hospital as fast as I could, because I just needed to go. Like I needed to go home and be around Journey, where I could love and kiss on her. And so we were discharged probably like 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later. And I remember, because obviously after you have a baby, they have to roll you down. Jeremy had to pull the car up. And once again, this nurse I had, we had another cry session downstairs. She was absolutely amazing. Like, we hugged each other, and I just remember her saying, you're a tough mama. You got this. Like you, and we I got in the truck, and then we left, and I'm just thinking the whole ride home, like, man, I don't have my baby. Like, it's just crazy. Like it wasn't dawning on me, but here it is. Like I know I delivered. I can physically see I no longer have him inside of me, but it took me a while for it to actually, like, even through all that whole process, to actually play through, like, okay, you were no longer pregnant. You had your baby early. He didn't make it. And then Jeremy's parents were here with Journey. Came home, pretty much passed out, because we really didn't sleep in the hospital. So we hadn't slept in like 24 hours or so. And Jeremy's parents cooked for us that night for dinner. And I'm super grateful for them. I'm super grateful for like literally everybody we had taught, like between my mom, Jeremy's parents, everybody. Like, so the next day, so he was born on the 25th, which is Sunday. We got discharged on the 25th. He was born early morning, got discharged later on in the afternoon. Monday came around. We actually had to go up to the funeral home in order to sign paperwork and get the process rolling, and let them they can go get the baby and go from there. And like I said, they were amazing there too. Everybody was just so amazing. And then my mom actually flew in and stayed with us for a whole week afterwards. That whole week. And then she went back, and then Jeremy's parents came over and whatnot. And then she went back, and then my younger brother, Jerron, came and stayed the next week with us. And it was really nice to have him here, just because it was like somebody was always here. Because I did have moments where it was just like, oh my goodness, like what really just happened? Like this really did just happen. And when I tell you, like 12/18 played in my mind so much. It seemed like every Saturday it was like a repeat from Friday through the weekend. Every weekend after that, it's like, wow, like that Friday we went to the doc. Like it was just it kept replaying in my head. Like this time last week we were at the doctor. This time last week we were headed to the hospital, and we were delivering. And 12/18 popped up on the clock. Every time I looked at the clock, that 12/18, I would see, and I'd be like, dang, like that's crazy. And weeks. This was literally happening to me for weeks. Saturdays and Sundays, and playing in my head. Like I was keeping track of, oh, the baby would have been this old, I would have been this how many weeks. Like it definitely plays in my head, and to this day it still plays in my head. Like this is what
tomorrow we're recording, like, oh, right now
we could have been.
We probably,
if I didn't deliver early, this is the due date. Like it's nonstop, you know what I mean? And it just, I don't know, it's a very eye-opening experience, because like I said, I was like, oh, that'd be great, I find out I was pregnant, everything's will be great. But everybody always has said, like, every pregnancy is different, and I definitely can tell every pregnancy was different. That's my second one, and it was definitely different from my first. And I told myself, when people ask, like, how many kids have you had? I'm going to always say, no matter how, if we have 2, if we have 3, if we have 4, how many ever kids we have, I had JJ. We went through a whole birth. Like, he came out and he was alive, you know, he just came too early. And, yeah, so it's been a whirlwind of emotions. Like I said, not one day goes by that I don't think of them. It's like, it's forever etched in my brain, etched in my, like, not one day goes by. Because when you find out you're pregnant, it's one of those things of, man, like, you start to envision, like, what the future looks like. Like, when we found out we were pregnant with Journey, oh wow, like, we're pregnant. Like, wow, we're gonna have a little mini me running around, this, that. Then we found out we were having found out we were having little JJ, and we're like, wow, we have our boy, we have our girl, we have our boy, you know. And it was like, they're gonna be like a year and a few months apart. No, they'll be almost a little under than 2 years apart. And so I was just like, man, and you start planning things, and you know, you were in the process of buying things. Like, we were halfway through a whole pregnancy, you know. So it was just like, when that's just all like just stripped and just taken away from you, you're literally like, I like I said, I just literally just sit back and I'm like, man, like life is so different. Like, it's different than what I was expecting it to be right now, currently, you know, because we had plans, you know. But you know, they always say you make plans and God laughs at them. You know, I don't know what God has in store for us, but I know, like, God honestly doesn't put anything on us that he knows that we are not able to handle. And I've honestly sat back, and one thing I can tell you I did not do, because at first, you know, you get into that, like, well, what could I have done differently? What can I, like, what can I have changed? Because that was definitely, like, you know, something that played with me. I'm like, what if I didn't have the liver issues going on? Maybe that caused it. But the doctors were like, no, Jasmine, there is nothing that you could have done differently that would have changed the outcome of this situation. The subchronic, so what caused me to go into preterm labor was the subchronic hematoma was right next to my cervix, and it was pretty much rubbing away at my cervix. Like, it was causing my cervix to get thin because it was right next to it. So because they went and got the placenta tested and all that stuff, and everything was normal. And it was crazy because after I did birth the placenta, I could see the subchronic hematoma. Like, you can see it attached to the placenta. And it was just one of those things of, like, this was out of your hands. Like, there was nothing you could have done differently. There's nothing that we could have helped, you know, done that could have prevented this, because they couldn't give me the cerclage. And so I never in this situation was just like, oh man, this, like, I know I did everything right, especially by, like, I literally, like I said, I was in the doctor's office all the time. If anything was changing with me, I was letting them know about it, because I knew, like, I'm high risk at this point in time. Let me keep them up to date with anything going on with my body. But yeah, it's been quite the experience. I'm not gonna say. And to all the people who knew what was going on, which a lot of people didn't know what was going on. A lot of people, like I said, didn't even know we were pregnant. A lot of people didn't know I was high risk. A lot of people didn't know I had stuff going on with my liver. A lot of people didn't know a lot of people didn't even know we even delivered the baby preterm. And so, like, obviously it happened, and we told our families, because Jeremy and I personally didn't tell people, like, we delivered as soon as it happened. Like, we allowed our families to tell them, but we asked them until we figure out, you know, start our healing process, just don't reach out to us. So all the text messages and all that stuff, like, and all the phone calls, it wasn't that we were ignoring them. It was, which we appreciate. Like, thank you everybody who reached out, who knew what was going on. Like, we appreciate that. But it was just one of those things of, we had to personally just, like, take time to ourselves as a family, and just literally, you know, heal. Like, we just kind of, what did we do? Like, we just kind of took a step back from the world, honestly.
Well, you did.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I wasn't on Facebook. I didn't want to do, I wasn't talking to nobody. Like, obviously I'm talking to my mom, make sure I'm okay, but we weren't taking phone calls. It just, had to get over that hump. Well, it's crazy because I just remember, like I said, for our first birthday journey, when we had Journey, like both of our moms were in the room with us. And so it's just crazy because with Journey, I remember Journey was born and Jeremy knew Journey was okay. Like she was perfectly fine, but I was having a postpartum hemorrhage. I just remember Jeremy sitting next to me the whole entire time. Like they couldn't figure out or stop my bleeding for it was like an hour and a half that I was bleeding, and he did not move. He literally did not move from my side, and I just remember saying to myself, like, I gotta stay strong. I gotta stay strong. Like, because I don't want them to see that I'm like, what the heck? Like, what's going on? Why can't they figure out why I kept bleeding? And he just sat there. And so, like, when we went through this experience with JJ, and this time it was just me and him, and our moms couldn't be in the room with us because of COVID. I just remember, like, it played in my head again. I'm like, man, like, I know I'm birthing, the child and going from there, but it's equally as tough for a father to sit there and watch what's going on. And I remember my mom telling me, she said, Jasmine, when you told me that you were having the baby and like you were in labor, she was like, she's like, all I did immediately start praying. But she said, I was comforted by knowing that, like, when I was delivering like Journey and watching how Jeremy sat in that hospital and did not move. And I remember him kept asking the doctors, like, is she okay? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. So my mom was like, I knew you were going to be okay. Or I know, like, Jeremy would not allow anything to happen to you, because I remember how he was during the experience of Journey. And the same thing happened. Jeremy did not leave my side from the time we got in that hospital and we sat in that chair. I just remember looking at him. I'm like, man, he's so strong. Like, he literally sits here and he's going through the motions with me and going through everything. And mind you, he's not obviously feeling the labor pains and having to push the baby out, but like he's, asking the right questions and saying things to the doctor. Because like when I'm over here, like, okay, like I'm just saying okay to everything because I'm like, is this really happening? He's literally asking the questions that needed to be asked to make sure, like, what is that for? What's this or what's that? So I know, like, definitely this experience, honestly, having a kid together with somebody anyway brings you closer to them. But this experience has definitely brought us closer. Like I said, our grieving processes, I think, are totally different. But I can say, like, in the moments that I was weak, like, he called one day. I was at home crying and he saw me on the camera. And I remember him calling me at the exact time. It was like, are you okay? So, like, it seems like all the moments that I was weak, he was like, he would pick me up. Or the moments that he was weak and had his breakdown, like his meltdowns would break down, like, I would be like the strong one, like, okay, we get through this, we got this. But like, it's honestly a everyday ongoing, like I said, I don't know about it, but me, not a day goes by that I don't think about it. Not a day goes by that I don't think, like, what JJ's life could have been or would be, or what, because he was so loved. Like, from the time we found out we were pregnant, like, he was wanted. He was a part of our family, like, he's still a part of our family. This is actually, like I said, we had to get him cremated. So this is our little urn of him. And it says, you see it, always in our heart. But yeah, we got him cremated, got him in the little urn. And so, like, he's always going to be with us no matter what.
Sorry, the glare.
It says baby, yeah. It spells out baby around it.
Yeah, it spells baby around it. B-A-B-Y. B-A-B-Y. Maybe in the verse on the top.
Yeah. But he will all, and we honestly, like, to this day, like, Journey will say baby, or, say JJ. And that was the hard part too, coming home and Journey not being able to understand, like, mommy's no longer pregnant, because she would, she would lay on my belly and kiss my belly. And so, I came home and she was like, baby, baby, baby. And so now we just, we let her know. I tell her, like, baby JJ's in heaven watching over us. Like, I don't know if she fully understands, but after a while she did stop saying baby, and, like, and so forth. So, yeah, this has definitely been a life-changing event. And it's crazy because you know what? It's another thing that, you know, they always say, and I always think about this. They say to you, like, number one, you don't know how, because miscarriages and preterm births, people don't talk about them. You really, like, you know people, like, you might know some, but honestly, after this experience,
we found out a whole bunch of people
Had it.
had experienced it after, because then they opened up to us. Oh yeah, well, dang, I didn't, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
After you experience it, then that's when a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I've dealt with that too, or I've had, you know, or I'm, you know, and it's crazy because they say, like, don't tell anybody you're pregnant until, like, the 12-week safe zone. And Jeremy and I always sit back and talk about it now because I'm like, there is no safe zone. Like, 12 weeks, it's called a miscarriage.
The father that wrote the book that I read,
you can get to 40 weeks.
He got to 40 weeks
and have a stillbirth.
Had a stillbirth. Yeah.
Like, it's
and
one of those things of yeah. And it's like, you know, before 37 weeks is preterm birth. So it really doesn't matter where you are in pregnancy. I literally am like, there is no safe zone during pregnancy. Like, yes, you feel a little more comfortable once you get past that 12-week mark into your second trimester, but anything can happen. Like, you just don't know. And like, I've honestly, through this experience, I learned like literally how life can be there. I've always talked about life can be there and be gone like this, but I've really honestly can say like, I've never experienced that because people who have passed in my life, they passed due to old age, or they passed due to, you know, a sickness where like you're preparing yourself for it. But to see something literally like you were breathing and you were perfectly fine Friday, and then a few hours later it's like panic mode, what's happening? It was just like all right, Jasmine, it was definitely a wake-up call for me, you know. So like I said, I appreciate everybody. I'm not gonna name you by name, but you know who you are.
Name one, you gotta name
who knew what had happened and would reach out to us, brought me food, brought us food, or, you know, just sent flowers, invited us over, like brought, you know, blankets, like anything. Like, I appreciate phone calls, text messages. It did not go unnoticed. It honestly was very comforting. All the text messages and all the things that everybody who reached out called and just left voicemails, even though we weren't picking up the phone call, like, thank you. Like, from the bottom of our hearts, like, we seriously appreciate you guys, because it really does take a village. And I know, like, we weren't the only ones hurting. Obviously, like, our parents were hurting, and like my grandparents, like, you know, siblings, I know they were hurting because like I can hear it and see, like, I know, you know. So I, you know, appreciate everybody who reached out and just checked on us, and, you know, would just come over and keep us company or invite us over. Like, thank you so much. Seriously, from the bottom of our hearts. We definitely thank you. And thank God that you are in our lives. Another thing that I will honestly say is, like, people, please don't ask a woman or a couple when they're going to have a baby, because you don't know, number one, if they're dealing with fertility issues, like, which is very private and personal. Or number two, if they just experienced a loss. They could have just had a miscarriage that they didn't tell nobody about. And you're asking them, when are you going to have a baby? Like, so that's just something that honestly, like, bothers me. Like, and it probably bothers a lot of people. Like, I understand, like, you're just doing it out of love or doing it out of, like, just, I would honestly just don't mention it, because yeah, you're not trying to, like, there's no ill will behind what you're asking, but you don't know what people are struggling with, or if they just literally had a loss the day before you asked them, and you're just bringing it up, and it's, you know, bringing up all the memories. So I would, you know, just, you know, if you see this, and you refrain from asking people that's just honestly one of those personal things that, you know, shouldn't be asked of a woman or a couple or anybody. But yeah, that is our preterm birth story and the life that we gave to Jeremy Houston Kennebrew Jr. We love you so much, and we miss you every day. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to our videos today. If you got through it all, we appreciate you. If you didn't, we still appreciate you. But go ahead and like, subscribe, leave us a comment. You can share your story if it's happened to you, if you would like. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. We will be back for another video. We love you all.
Take it easy, guys.